Welcome to our spring training. What I will do is, in the past, when I've done these spring training events, I've always just kind of dived straight into the platform and started building programs immediately and talking about features. However, this year it's been a little different in terms of how we have worked with especially our newer libraries. What they want to know is what are best practices, or how can I get the most engagement out of my community in reference to my reading programs. So I'm changing the training just a little bit. And before we get into the dashboard and talk about the mobile app, we're going to kind of talk big picture about reading programs in general and what your goals are as a library or a school or any type of literacy organization in reference to how you do reading programs altogether. So what I will do is switch my screen here. I just have a 5 slide kind of PowerPoint presentation we can walk through really quickly. And my goal with that is just to kind of get you thinking about your reading programs in a bigger sense. And I'll invite you to think about how you are considering deploying your reading programs and maybe give you the space to think through and maybe make some changes with regard to how you will do things based on the information you receive here today. So I'm going to switch my screen. Just yesterday, I was speaking with a librarian and she hadn't didn't know a lot about Reader Zone, and I said, "What would you like to accomplish?" And she held up the sheet of paper that had all these various different activities on it that allowed patrons to choose all these enriching activities they could do. And I asked her, is where's the reading in your activity? She said, "Well, there's a space here on the bingo card to read 30 minutes and another one over here to read a book that you like." And I thought, this is a lot of really enriching activities, but reading is kind of like over here as a part of this whole suite of activities. And I'll tell you that if your reading programs are not completely wrapped around reading, no matter how wonderful all your specific activities are, you're missing the point and you're missing the opportunity to engage patrons. And that's what I want to talk about. As I've done this more and more this spring, I've become more and more bold, engaging that with our customers and our prospective customers and really talking about what your goal is with your reading programs. So here's just some different goals you have. I've never talked to a library that said our goal with our reading program is to do these really complicated activities that are expensive, incredibly disruptive for our staff, and are difficult to manage. I've never heard anybody say that as a goal of their reading program, but many times I talk to librarians every day that when they think about summer reading, they get stomach acid thinking about how much stress, how much work it's going to create for them in their library. And that is the exact opposite emotion that you should feel in regard to your reading programs. So let's talk about this. So we've hosted about 178,000 reading programs all over the world. And here's what we know. Number one, simplicity drives engagement. Last year in 2025, we worked with a fairly large library in the state of Colorado. Up until 2025, they had this very enriching summer learning program that had all these kind of activities you could do, and reading was just one of them. They decided they were going to change gears, and last year in 2025, they moved from this very complex kind of activity heavy summer learning program to a program where they just asked their patrons, "Did you read today? Yes or no?" And from 2024 to 2025, they more than doubled the number of participants in their reading programs, and their impact in their community was much greater than they anticipated. I attribute that to just taking the complexity out of their reading programs and making them very simple and streamlined and giving their patrons a really simple way of participating. And I say that because many times we are beholden to the tyranny of the few. By that I mean you have a few families in your community who show up at the library every 2 weeks. They fill up their canvas bags of books, and if you ask them to read, Les Miserables in the original French for their summer reading program, they would probably do it. But what about the other 99.5% of your prospective participants in your reading programs? What do they want, and how are you serving them? Because you're always going to have a few patrons who are very vocal and want something that's really complex and really interesting and very layered, but most of your patrons, they don't want that. And I say that because patrons will give you 8 to 10 seconds. When we built the Reader Zone mobile app, we built it along principles of how we as humans today use mobile apps. And that is, in any given mobile app, if it takes you more than 8 or 10 seconds to get to the primary action with which you are while you're accessing the app, you probably will stop. Just think about the last time you opened up the Amazon mobile app on your phone to check on shipping for a particular item. You probably got to the shipping notification in like 3 seconds, and that's what you expect. If it took you logging in and then clicking around and finally getting to that, you probably wouldn't do it. So when we give patrons a mobile app to use, we want to give them the capacity to make a reading entry and engage with your library reading program in seriously less than 8 seconds. The last thing here is I always say that readers can change and adapt. That library I talked to you about in Colorado, they were very concerned about moving from kind of a complex activity-based program to just a did you read today, yes or no program. They were worried that some patrons would drop off or they were doing this huge change. And what they found is that patrons were happy to do something different. They still had the activities at the library. Patrons still came to those, but they were able to make some pretty big changes and see some good results. These little phrases always break my heart when I talk to a library. When they say, this is how we've always done summer reading. Our patrons like doing summer reading this way, or it's too difficult to change our programs. I would say that those three statements are all false. You can do something different. You can change gears and you can engage patrons in a new way and get more people reading and engaging with your library. And I'll show you how. When we talk about simplicity drives engagement, this is what we're talking about. Can you explain your programs in fewer than 100 words? And by that, I mean how patrons engaged, what incentives you're going to deliver for them, and what the outcome is for the patron. Can you do that very succinctly? Number two, and I said this before, is make reading programs all about reading. If you wrap your reading programs and your summer programs around reading, you can still do all the wonderful enriching activities, but your patrons will react more strongly to something that is very reading based. We always say use awards to keep readers informed and incentivized. You know how to do that. I talk to libraries every day, and almost all of them have some sort of an incentive system, and I'll show you how to get that and make it work better for you. The last item down here is very important to us, and that is show your success. And let me show you what I mean by that. Many times we run these wonderful, enriching reading programs. We have a lot of patron engagement, but we keep all that data in the building. I want you to get your data out of the building. I want you to show how your patrons, your stakeholders, everybody who is involved with your library, your proof of mission. I want you to celebrate your success and show that to your patrons and your community. When you get the data out of the building, you can build a lot of energy in your reading programs and really create something that's very special. We have this little badge is built right in the platform. We have libraries that will surpass 1 million minutes or some huge number of reading very early in their reading programs, and they get that data out of the building, and all of a sudden they see the interest in their programs swell, and people just get more engaged because they feel like they're part of something that's big and successful and working really well. So tactics for success, have an easy to use mobile app, make reading programs all about reading, and show your success. So with that, I'm going to switch my screen here and let's talk about reading programs and Reader Zone in specific terms. As I do that, I want you to fire off with any questions you might have. Brian is going to be posting items here or answering questions in the chat if you have questions there. But let's start talking about reading programs and how you do it within Reader Zone. So this is the Reader Zone dashboard. One thing that's kind of easy to miss is up here at the very top of the dashboard, you can always see your cumulative data and how your readings are, how all your programs are kind of doing in real time. I'm going to pick on this 2026 summer reading program and show you kind of how this works. This is a group-based program. And the way Reader Zone is set up is you have reading programs, and those reading programs are kind of like a bucket. And that bucket can hold any range of reading groups that you would like. In this particular example, I have all these groups set up: adult readers, early readers, elementary readers, log your minutes, read every day. I'll pick on a couple of these and show you how I set these up, and that might kind of spur some ideas with regard to how you set your programs up. So if you haven't built a reading program before, when you land on this main programs page, there's a big button that says let's go or build your first reading program. When you do that, you click add program like this, and you can either select a pre-built template that you could pull right into Reader Zone, into your dashboard, or you can go through the quick start method and build your programs kind of step by step. The first thing you'll do in the quick start is give your reading program a name. And then the next step is you'll start putting reading groups in it. And that's what this looks like right here is my 2026 summer reading. So let's pick on a few groups here. Let's look at our adult readers. When you arrive at a reading group like this, you will see all the readers who are a part of this given reading group. And your groups can have an unlimited number of readers in them. I'm going to click on the Edit Group button right here, and we're going to look at all of the tools that are available for any given reading group. So I'll click Edit Group. I land on this screen, and you'll see the first thing I'll do is I give the group a name. You can name it whatever you'd like. We suggest using a group name that is very descriptive. Sometimes we like to use kind of cute names like, the dinosaur readers or, Jurassic readers or something like that. That may not kind of direct your patrons with regard to who needs to join that particular group. So I would just call this something like adult readers, elementary readers, ages 0 to 5, whatever you want to call that. And then put in your description down here. And this little description is what you would like your patrons to know about this program as they sign up. So think about when they open up the mobile app, they enter in that reading program code, they see the list of your groups here, and just give them some instructions with regard to who needs to join that group and what it does. And you can put kind of a long slug of information in here, but it's good to have a good description. You can change this description at any point. If you decide even in the middle of a summary you want to kind of tweak it, make it a little more clear, just get in there and make some changes. Any given reading group can have one of these metrics: minutes, pages, chapters, books, a yes, no response, or other. You can make up your own metric if you would like. And then down here, you select your dates for it. Your dates are set up such that these are the dates for which your patrons will be eligible to make reading entries into this particular group. And each group in your program can have a different set of dates if you would like. But the way this is set up is if I'm starting, say on June 1st, 2026, or I guess it's 2025, if this reading group is ready and prepared for my patrons on May 1st, my patrons can start joining it then. So we always suggest having your groups ready as soon as you can, and that lengthens out your sign up process. So that will allow you to take a lot of the stress out of the sign up process and give your patrons a lot of time to get going with your programs. When June 1st arrives, that program then lights up and they can start making reading entries into it. Down here is past entries and photos. If you, by default, your patrons will be able to make reading entries into this reading group, in this case, after August 31st. If you want to just make it such that when August 31st arrives, we're no longer accepting reading entries, just turn that off or leave it on. You can also allow photographs to be a part of a reading entry. So if you're doing something that you want to allow patrons to take pictures and make it a part of their program, you can just turn photos on and off, and it's really easy to edit those at any point as well. Over here, there's a few things. The first is the book bank. The book bank allows you as an organization to make suggested titles or suggested reading for this particular reading group. So if I just want to give my adult readers somewhere to start, I can make my some book suggestions here. There's also a little checkbox up here that says allow logging reading without selecting books. If you would like, if you have a program where you're having your patrons log books they read, by default the app will make it such that if I say I read a book, it will require me to attach a title to that entry. If you check this box, it will make it such that patrons can skip that step. They can say I read a book and they don't have to report what book they read. They still can if they would like, but they don't have to. Down here are my group questions. This allows me to ask any question that I would like of my patrons as they sign up into my program. So any demographic point you'd like to pull or anything you'd like to know about your patrons as they sign up, you can put that here. You can choose one of our built-in questions, or you can make your own question like, how many toes do you have? You can make questions required or not. So if I want to know what the library card number is of the patron and I want to make that required, I can. This will make it such that when a patron joins this particular reading group, they will not be able to proceed and finish their registration until they answer that question. And you can add questions at any point, even in the middle of your summer reading program. If you decide, oh, I wish we knew something about our patrons, you can put that question in here. And the next time the patron opens up the app, they'll be prompted to answer it. The last item here that I talked about earlier is awards. So it's really great to make a rich kind of badge and award system for your patrons as they move through your programs. So an example here is if I want to give an award when a patron finishes 5 books, I can pop over here and edit that. I can change the image for it right here. I can put in a new trigger for it. So maybe if I want to do this at 7 books instead of 5, easy peasy. I can put in my message down here, and this is a great way to prompt your patrons with regard to what to do as they move through your program. So in this case, when the patron logs 7 books, I say come to the library and pick up your new Kia Sorrento. Whatever your budget is for your library, you can do that. But this is a great way of telling your patrons what to do. And it's a really easy way of making sure they stay involved with your program. So I would use these awards. Again, you can edit these at any point. So if you feel like the verbiage isn't quite right, you can pop in here even in the middle of the summer and change it. You can swap out the image. It's really easy to do this. And you can go through and actually build as many awards as you would like. I have a library that went through and they created more than 1,000 awards in their reading program. And I had never seen that before, but it's remarkable. Over here are the tasks. If you are delivering your patrons a task or some sort of an incentive, a prize, a book, whatever you're giving to them as they move through your programs, you can set this up as a task. And I'll show you what this looks like here. So if I want to do this, maybe my task one is when the patron finishes 5 books, I'm going to give the patron a gift certificate. I can make it such that when Bob Reeder comes to the library, I can see that he finished his 5th book on October 8th, 2024. When I click completed, now I check off that Bob has picked up his gift certificate. These tasks are built for you as a library staff. They are internal. Your patrons don't see these. It's just a way of you tracking patron engagement. You can also run raffles right here. So if I want to create some eligibility criteria for when my patrons are eligible for the raffle, I can build a task around that and then run the raffle right here as well. So, but the tasks are a really great way of tracking that patron engagement. If I want to see everybody who has picked up their gift certificate, I can download that as a CSV file and I can see all that data right there for me. So again, build these, work with them. You can you can experiment with these as much as you'd like, and it's a great way of doing it that way. So that is
Jake,
kind of, yeah.
question from a participant wants to know if you're asking kids to read 10 minutes a day, for example, can you limit the entry to only a single daily entry so that they can't do multiple entries in a day?
For a minutes-based group, no, you can't make it such that they can only enter one time. They can make multiple entries in a day if you're doing something other than a yes/no entry. So they can
So,
make,
so the best way to set that up would be a yes no metric.
yeah, that's a great segue. Let me show you what that might look like. So I talked about that group or that library in Colorado that did a yes/no group. Let me show you what this looks like. So this is a read every day group, and the way these work is that the response is yes, no. So here, I could say read every day, and you can always think about kind of what you want your patrons to know with regard to a reading program. So if you want to put in here, read at least 10 minutes every day, you can do that. And if it's a yes, no response, you can actually put in the question down here. So this question is just, did you read today? I've had libraries who put in the question, did you read at least 20 minutes today? So you can ask them a qualifying question as well. And with a yes, no response, you can only answer yes or no once every 24 hours. So that's a little different way of thinking about it, but this is by far the kind of the lowest impact and the least amount of friction with regard to doing a reading program is a read every day group. And we'll pull up the mobile app and I'll show you what that looks like as well. But going back to my summer reading, that I just showed you a books-based group. If you want to do a minutes-based group, here's a log minutes group. And again, it's the same kind of parameter setup where the only difference here is I'm logging my minutes and my awards are based on how many minutes we've read instead of how many books or another metric. So all the groups kind of work the same with regard to the inputs for them. It's just depending on what you want your patron to do. With that, you can kind of build as many groups as you would like. We always suggest having as few reading programs as possible and then having multiple groups in there so that you can accommodate all your ages of readers. If you have your preschool kids, your elementary kids, middle school, high school, and then your adults, those can all be in one reading program and they can all be together. They can even have different metrics, but they all can live together. So with that, why don't I pull up, I think this will make a lot more sense if we pull up the mobile app and kind of show you what this looks like. So I'm going to pull this up and let's talk about it. So
While
the
you
way
do
we,
that, Jake, do you think there's more engagement with minutes-based groups or books groups?
I would say you get a little more engagement with minutes-based groups, and the only reason I say that is because if it's a full book, a patron will come and log when they finished a book. And that may take 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 days, or however long it takes to read a book. Um, However, a minutes-based group, people will come in, they'll want to do that every day. So you'll get kind of more daily engagement with a minutes-based group or a yes-no type group, especially for an older reader set like high school readers and adults. For younger readers, you know, a books-based group can work really well, and librarians already kind of intuitively know that. I have a lot of our programs that they'll do books for their preschool kids, they'll do minutes for their elementary and their middle school kids, and then for, their high schoolers and their adults, they'll go back to books. It just depends on how you'd like to set it up, but you'll get probably more daily engagement with a minutes-based group, but age ranges have a lot to do with that as well. Hopefully that answered the question. So this is my phone. And the way we built the mobile app is again talking about that 8-second rule. When I open up the Reader Zone app, I will go straight to the reading entry screen. If there's only one reader in my account, I don't have to log in. I stay logged in for as long as, for the whole summer if I would like. And when I'm here to make a reading entry, I can use the timer right there, and it'll start ticking up. As that moves up, I'll show you some other tools that you would like probably your patrons to be aware of. The first is the book bank, and regardless of what type of reading program your patrons are participating with, they always have access to the book bank where they can keep track of both their books they're reading and the books they have read. So, if I am reading a book and I want to add it, I'll click Add Book. So if I'm reading Do Fish Sleep right here, most patrons will want to just scan a barcode on the back of the book. And I can put this in books I have or books I have read or books to read. If I put this in books to read, I click that and it's done. Um, this is what your patrons to see in terms of the awards. This is a goal-based group, so it's based on percentage completion, but you can kind of get an idea here about what this looks like. You can control the image that appears here, the trigger for when this fires, and then the messaging that appears down here as well. So when your patron unlocks an award, the entire screen gets taken over by the award, and you can deliver them a message. Come to the library and pick up your sticker, or whatever thing you want them to know with regard to what they need to do next. Patrons love the progress feed here. This allows them to see all of their progress over time. They can see when they sign up. They can see the awards they have unlocked. If you're asking them to take pictures in relation to their reading program, they would see the pictures in here as well. It's really fun for them. But going back to my home screen here, we're at 1 minute and 30 seconds. So it's going to round up to 2 minutes. And I just made my reading entry. And I've unlocked an award. So you can see that when you unlock an award, this is what it looks like. You can put your message down here, the image, and everything you'd like the patron to know about this. Really easy to work with this for your patrons. Um, any given account can have multiple readers as a part of it. In this account, I have all of these readers. If Derek is in an adult readers group that is logging books, you'll see the difference here is that when I arrive on this screen, I see that I read X number of books. I'll click one. I confirm that entry. From here, you'll see that this is the group that is here, this adult readers group. These books that say group on them are books that you suggested they read from you as the library. And then down here are books that I have read, and I can just kind of click through this. If I have read The Tipping Point, I select the book, and my reading entry is done. So again, it's all about making it super simple for your patrons and taking all the friction out of it. Let's look at that Read Every Day group, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like and give you an idea about how this works. And I'll show you how your patrons use this as well. So if I'm going to add a reader, let's add Bill Reader. From here, when you join a new reading program, you enter in the reading program code. So this is what your patrons see when you talk about your reading programs. Uh, it's it's ideal to include the links to the iOS and the Google Play app, and then that reading program code. So when my patrons do this, I'll put in F01A7. This is where I see the name of my reading program right here, and then all the groups that are a part of it. So you see, when you put in a good description here, it's really helps your patrons know what to do. But we're going to join this read every day group. And you could say down here, read at least 10 minutes every day, and whatever you'd like your patrons to know about that, but I'll join that group. Click next. And now I'm in there. These are the questions I want to have answered, and you see that I've made these both required. So I'll put a library card number in here. And which library branch do I visit most often? I'll put the main branch. You can make that question also a drop down. So if you want to have a selection of items for your patron to choose from in relation to that question, you can do that as well. Once I click next, I'm in the program and I'm ready to go. So Bill is ready to go. And this is what he sees when he opens up the mobile app. And you can say, did you read today? Did you read at least 20 minutes today? Did you read outside? Did you punch your brother? Did you give your mom a hug? Whatever you want them to respond to, I'll click yes, confirm the entry, and now it's done. And once I make that reading entry, it's confirmed as such, and I have now made my reading entry for the day, and I can come back in 24 hours and do it again. So it's all set up and ready to go for me. So, the mobile app is meant to be very straightforward and very easy for your patrons to get in and get engaged with. We don't want to give them a job. We want to make it easy. In fact, we don't want people to spend, more than a minute in the mobile app in any given day. We want them to pop in here, make their reading entry, admire the awards they have unlocked, view their progress, and then get out. It should just take a few seconds, and that's how you generate that engagement. So with that, let me show you a couple tools here that I like to show at the beginning of our presentation, just so you kind of understand how you generate that engagement. The first is down here at the bottom of the screen, you have this notify readers button. This allows you to send a push notification directly to the patrons who are involved in any given reading program. So if I want to send a push notification just to my adult readers, I can say, come to the library for an event we're doing Thursday at 8 p.m. Great. If you want to send a reminder, don't forget to log your reading. That's what this is for. What we find is that if you send your patrons just little reminders along the way for events at the library, activities that are available for them to participate with, reminders about participating in the reading program and logging their reading, all of a sudden you'll see that engagement stay a lot more sticky. And you can even go through and schedule out notifications to go out in the future. So think about if you're doing events at the library on a weekly basis, you may as well just send or schedule notifications to go out the day before all of your events. And that way, when your event is coming up the next day, so everybody gets a reminder the night before, and all of a sudden your building is full every time you're doing an in-person event. So that's why I say what you can do is have your reading programs really focus on reading something that's very reading specific, and then tell your patrons what's going on in terms of the activities that are available for them to participate with, especially in your building. I had a library in Connecticut last year that they always struggle to get people in the building for their events, and they just started sending out a push notification the night before all their events last year, and all of a sudden their building was full every time, and they had these really great events that looked awesome on Facebook because they took these pictures of their events, and it showed the building was full, and they built the energy in their programs, which was very powerful. So use the notifications, use the emails, and communicate with your patrons. I'll show you here in the Manage Readers area. This is an important thing for you to be aware of. This is where our libraries kind of spend their time once their patrons are all signed up and they're underway with their programs. If a patron comes to the library and they are ready to pick up their prizes or engage with you, I can just do a search right here for, Bill Reader. So here's Bill Reader right here. If I click on Bill, I arrive at his page that looks just like this. All your readers have a page at Reader Zone that is just like this. So on this page, I can make a reading entry. So if Bill comes to the library, he says, "Oh, I read yesterday, but I forgot to answer." Yes, great. We'll pop in here. We'll make your reading entry on your behalf, and it's really easy to do that. Let me click on that again. Sorry. And the reading entry is done. From here, I can make an individual book recommendation just for this patron. So if I want to, suggest a specific title for this reader to read, I can do that right here. I can edit or delete reading entries right here. I can go to this little icon and enter any information I would like to with regard to my individual reader. I can look at their awards that they have unlocked and their tasks right here. So a task is pick up 10 tickets. If Bill comes to the library and he's eligible to pick up his 10 tickets, I click task completed, and now I show that he's done that. So there's a lot of ways to work with your readers, and most of the time you'll spend, time here in the manage readers area as your patrons come to the library to interact with you. If you do have those patrons who just love that paper reading log or they don't want to use tech at all to participate in your reading programs, that's fine. Click your add and invite readers. You can create what's called an internal reader where you can put in a person's name and first name, last name, and then drop them into the reading program and group they want to participate with. And then when they bring that sheet of paper into the library, just go to that record through Manage Readers, make their reading entries, and then all your data lives in one place. If at some point that patron wants to take over their reading program and participate on their own, you can just go to that reader record that I just showed you, add an email address to it, and now that patron takes on their own account and they're off to the races on their own. So it's a really great way of doing that. So I'll mention here the um, the the website is available for your patrons to make reading entries. They can log into their account at readerzone.com and interact with their account on any desktop computer. If the app is also available in Spanish, so if the default language for the device is in Spanish, it will just show up as such, and there's a language selector in there as well. One thing I don't talk about a lot is this share and promote tab. This allows you just to build a badge that you can post on your website that talks about your reading programs. So if I want to make some changes for this, I would go in here and maybe if I want to make a badge for my 2026 summer reading program, I'd say, join us this summer. And I would say, we are reading. What this does when I save this badge is it creates this little badge for me. I can put in whatever information I want my patrons to know. It pulls the reading program code, and I can take this little item and download it in several different sizes and drop it on any web page I would like. And that way, when patrons come in, they want to join your reading programs, just say, oh, go to that purple badge on our page and just do what it says. Really easy to work with these. You have a lot of libraries that use these. My favorite part of the platform is the progress badges. As I talked about before, getting your reading data out of the building and building energy in your programs is a really powerful way of generating that engagement. So what you can do here is if you want to build a program for say 1,000 books for kindergarten, and you want to show how much reading has happened in real time, this little badge is built such that you can put in your own library logo right here. It will tick up in real time as your patrons log reading, and you can even take this and turn it into an HTML embed and drop it onto any web page you would like. And now you're publicly reporting the success of your reading program to your community. And our libraries that do this see a lot of really positive outcomes with it. They're able to go to their city council, the library board, or whomever their governing body is, and demonstrate the success and show them what they're doing. And when you can demonstrate impact in your community, it really is a very positive thing for your library. So I would suggest doing that. Over here in the reports area, there's one part over here that's easy to overlook, and this is the activity feed. This gives you the ability to really just scroll through and see what's going on with your program. So you can just kind of scroll through here and just see all the entries and everything that's happening in real time. I always say that reading programs are not acts of Congress. If you are seeing something in your program that is not quite working the way you wanted to or isn't quite meeting the expectations of your patrons, go in there and change a parameter about your reading program, especially when you launch your reading program, say on June 1st. I would go back and look on like June 3rd or 4th, 5th, see what's happening, and if there's something that could be tweaked or adjusted that will make it work better, just make the adjustment. On this reports page, there's a whole suite of additional filters you can use to pull data based on whatever parameter set that you would like. If you know what you need to report on at the conclusion of your reading programs, we can wrap those programs right around those data points. So when you're ready to pull your report, it's literally just a few mouse clicks and you're done. Easy peasy. So I'm doing a lot of talking, Brian. Is there any questions I need to answer?
No questions that we haven't addressed in the chat so
Oh,
far.
cool.
Please put any questions you have in there.
All right. Um, I'll just show you a couple things here in the My Account area. First, you can have as many authorized users in your account as you would like. So you can add that either as individual staff roles. Some libraries do it on a kind of a location basis in the library, like circulation one, circulation two, whatever you'd like. You have as many as you need right here. The last item I'll show you down here on this side is the My Homepage tool. This allows you to build a landing page for your reading programs that has its own URL. So when I click the edit page button right here, you can see here I can drop in my own library logo. I can put in a headline and some information about my reading programs, and I can expose the reading programs I want my patrons to see on this page by clicking the visible on page toggle or not. And then once I have this built, this turns into its own dedicated URL. And if a patron lands on this page, they can step right through the process of the sign up process for your reading programs, and they don't need that reading program code. If they scan this QR code with their phone, it actually takes them back to this page and they step through the registration process on their phone, and then they're immediately prompted to download the Readers on mobile app right there. So it's a really easy way of getting that sign up going for your patrons. So we want to make it really easy for them to sign up, and this is a great tool for that. However, I'll mention here that the most common way and probably the easiest way for your patrons to join your programs is however you talk about your programs on your social media, through flyers, however you kind of promote those. Include the links to the various mobile apps and then just the reading program codes for your programs, and people will step right through it. And 97 out of 100 people will have no problem getting in there. The other three will have problems with technology no matter what. So we just can't you can't solve for every absolutely everybody who doesn't know how to use a phone, but we can solve for for most everybody. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. Let me show you some tools here that you might find interesting. So going back to say a 1000 books before kindergarten program, if you think about kind of strategically how you want to funnel your patrons into various groups that can kind of sort out the reporting for you ahead of time, this is a great way of doing it. So you can see here, this 1000 books for kindergarten program is built such that it's one program with its own code, and I have, groups based on when kids will actually start kindergarten. So in this scenario, I'm able to kind of funnel the patron's age based on the group type. So our really successful reading program types will have it such that you have one program and then you kind of tell your patrons which group they need to join based on the parameters they want to participate with, or their age, or the school they attend, or any way you want to do that. So you can kind of think about at the end, I want to report on how many readers I had in my, ages 0 to 5. Just create an age 0 to 5 group, and that report is made for you as it goes. You'll see exactly how many readers you have in there. Um, and that also informs how you can do awards as well. So maybe your awards for your age, your ages 0 to 5, your kindergarten kids will be different than those for your middle schoolers. Then you can pop in here into the awards, and you can build awards based on that specific age range as well. So if you're strategic about how you kind of build your groups, you can get ahead of your reporting really easily and have those kind of reports going as you move along. That's a really easy way of thinking about it. We have a lot of libraries that will do adult reading programs, and if you want to give your adults kind of some new ways of thinking about how they want to do that, if I look at, say, my year-round programs right here, you know, with adult readers, you can give them some more options. So if you want to build like a banned book club, where here in the banned book club, you can build, awards based on how many books they read, but you can also build, uh, where is it? Where's my band? Oh, there it is. If I look at this, I can put into my book bank all the banned books I want, and my patrons can kind of check them off as they go. So that way you're kind of giving them some suggestions with regard to what to read. The same thing can kind of go for, say, a book of the month club, where my goal here is to read one book every month. And in my group editor, I would put a list of, you know, books that are available to read that month, or they could read their own book, but at least you're giving them somewhere to start. Many times we find that what patrons need to really get engaged, they just need a little bit of a ramp to get them going. And it could be just a suggested title. It could be just a way of you communicating with them and kind of creating a little bit of accountability with regard to their programming. But there's a lot of ways to think about how to engage these patrons. I have a lot of libraries who will do kind of genre-specific clubs, like a best of new nonfiction. So with a best of new nonfiction group, again, I would pop over here, and as I receive new nonfiction titles into my collection, I would just make that a suggested title in this group. And now I'm giving my patrons, again, this little ramp to get engaged. So what I like to see in terms of engagement, kind of the best practices flow that you can have for your library is the following. Build your reading program. When you're done building it on your end, reach out to us and schedule just a 10, 15-minute Zoom call where we can look at your program on your dashboard together. Then we can talk through what you're trying to accomplish and make sure you're not missing anything. I love doing that, so give me a call. Once that's built, if you begin your program, say on June 1st, by May 10th, if your programs are ready to go, I would start posting them to your social media accounts or, however you kind of talk about your reading programs and allow sign up to begin as soon as you're ready. So if you're starting on May 10th, when June 1st arrives, day one of your reading programs, pop down here to your notify readers, send a push notification out that says, hey, our reading program is starting today, get going. I would also send an email out just because on your first day, you may as well just remind people in two different ways. And that way, what'll happen is within the first, 48, 72 hours of your program, you'll get a big sugar rush of entries. And it'll be really fun to see all this data coming in and all this energy in your programs. At that point, go to your progress badges, build a progress badge that just covers the first, 3 to 5 days of your reading program. And then post that to your social media accounts or however you want to talk about it, and maybe even go back and put another push notification out that says, hey, everybody, during the first 5 days of our reading program, we logged 55,000 minutes or 7,500 books read. Keep going. And all of a sudden, you're keeping your patrons engaged and giving them the idea that there's a lot happening in your reading programs and there's some energy there. And all of a sudden, you'll see that participation stay more consistent. You'll remind them about events happening at the library, and you will be able to cover all these enriching activities that you do as patrons engage in reading specific programs. I
We have a
don't want you.
question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Is there a way to filter by age in a raffle? For instance, 0 to 5 versus 6 to 11-year-olds. What's the most efficient way to handle that?
What I would do, there's a few ways to handle that. If you want to, you could go here. If you were to set up, two groups, one group would be, 0 to 5 and 6 to 11. I would I would separate those out as two different groups, just because if you do that, let's imagine this is my 6 to 11 group. On all my awards and tasks, this is already filtered out for my 6 to 11-year-olds. Or if you want to put them all in the same group together, that's fine. What I would do here is we'll just call it, maybe let's imagine this group is called, all readers ages 0 to 12. That's great. You could pop over here and you could build a question that would be like this. Let me show you. We'll make a question here and I say, what is your age range? And then from here, I would make this a multiple choice. If I add an option, I'll say 0 to 5. Sorry. We'll do another one. And now I have these two options there for my patrons to join as they sign up. And if I want to make that required, but if I pop over here, I can make that question, what is your age range? I can make that a required question. So now my patrons will have to answer that question as they sign up. So on the back end, when I pull my reports, I can pull a report that'll have a column in there that has the choice that patron made. So you can sort that out and run the raffle that way. So there's two ways to do it. I would suggest creating different groups for your different age ranges just because it's a little cleaner to see what each one is doing. But if you want to put them in one group, just put a question in there that qualifies them and allows you to see who is who on the back end. What I was talking about before, that's the ideal flow. Build your programs, reach out to us. Let's look at them together real quick, launch them to your community, lengthen out that sign up process, and then day one, remind people about what they're doing, get that data in there and then start talking about your reading programs to your community. And then all of a sudden you'll see much more participation than you have in the past. I see it every year. We see libraries that come back and say we more than doubled the number of participants from, last year to this year. And usually it's because we made it a little more easy, a little more straightforward. And instead of kind of handing them that sheet of paper and saying, bring it back when you're done, we communicated with them throughout the process and they stayed engaged. Because what we find is that patrons want to participate. They sign up for your reading programs because they really do want to engage and they want to do this thing. But life gets in the way very quickly. They kind of forget and they just need little nudges along the way to keep them going. Talking about that, going back to my program screen here, as you build your individual programs on your reader's own account, you can have as many reading programs as you would like. Your patrons won't see a reading program until you expose it to them. So unless you make the reading program code public or make it public on your homepage, your patrons can't see this. It's a really easy way to have a sandbox here, just kind of to test things and just kind of explore it and see how it works. You're not going to break anything. And if you want to delete programs and groups, just delete them. And it's really easy to work that way. Over here on our web page, I'll show you a couple tools that are available for you. If you click on the resources tab right here and then on the toolbox, you can see that there's a whole suite of assets that are available for you to use. If you want to download one of these little squares for your social media, that's really easy to pull. If I look at some other items here, I'll show you the most kind of popular ones. The first is a printable flyer. If you click down here, you'll see there's a little 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that you can download. You can drop in your reading program code right here. Many libraries will just laminate this and make it available in the libraries when patrons come in and they say, how do I join the reading programs? You just give them this laminated sheet of paper and just say, follow these 10 steps and you're in. That's a really easy way to do it. Another thing that a lot of my libraries will do is in our help videos area, there's this little 5-minute app instruction video that is just a screen share that shows them how to create an account, join a program, and then how to use the app. So that's a really easy way of doing it. We have a lot of libraries that will just download that. They'll post it to their summer reading page, and it's really easy for them to work with it that way. So these resources are here to use. They're free. Browse them and see what is going to work best for you, and it's really easy to use those as well. So I was just doing that. I really do invite you to reach out to us and schedule a time where we can look at your dashboard together. If you're a little nervous about pushing it live to your patrons, I don't want you to be. Reach out to us and we can look at your dashboard together and make sure you're all set up and ready to go. If you do have kind of a complicated program where you are trying to pull in all these activities and make it kind of very rich for your patrons, I would invite you to think about how to simplify your programming and wrap it more around reading specific activities. You'll see more engagement that way, and your patrons will have an easier time participating with it. I know doing the raffle card or the bingo card is really interesting for us as staff sometimes, but many times when we hand that complicated activity set to a family, they'll look at that and their eyes immediately glaze over. Whereas if you say, our goal here is for your child to read every day. Okay, I can get that. We can read every day. And that's something that will, again, create that engagement. So with that, I will invite you to circle back with us and make that appointment to look at your programs. If there's anything in particular you're trying to answer or figure out, let us know. We're here for you. You can get a hold of us. The best way to reach out is just via email. It's help@reader.zone. You can call us as well. We love answering the phone, and we'll drop that here in the chat as we wrap it up. But with that, I'll thank you for joining me and invite you to circle back with more questions you might have. And we really look forward to working with you this summer and building really great programs for your patrons. So thanks, everybody. And I guess we'll go from there.